It should be.
What happened to
All
our,
right, 6:30, we'll call the April 3rd
how come our students aren't up here?
Regional School Committee. They're not on the agenda. We do a quick roll.
Sure. Steve Owen.
Here.
Jim Fox is not here. Sherry Barron.
Here.
Robert Clark.
Here.
Here. Derek Gracia.
Here.
Will Sankwitz.
Here.
Steve Sylvia.
Here.
All right, is anybody recording the meeting? Lakeville, welcome. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Typically, this meeting, we do a reorg of the school committee. With a few members missing, we're going to have that on the April 24th agenda. So keep everything as is until the 24th meeting for that.
We did provide at your place the current positions.
Anybody for public participation?
So, and I would just simply add that public participation at the end of the budget hearing will also open it back up, which is typically the case for the budget hearing. Right now, it looks like for Robert and Aiden and at least one other.
I don't see anybody running to the mic, so we should be good for now. Item 4, acceptance of minutes, March 20th.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Passes unanimously. No presentations tonight.
That is correct, other than the budget presentation tonight.
Item
We do
6
have
on
both of
the...
our student reps. I just want to note who asked that they also be present and wanted to attend the hearing, so welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Item number 6, old business FY19 budget status report.
Included in your packet is the updated budget reports that I provide each meeting to show where we are currently. The FY19 E&D projection is still on target. I've made no changes since November. And I've also included the FY19 assessment sheet in the packet.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, new business.
I have, 2 additional items before I can move on. Sorry, Steve.
19.
All right.
The AES statement of interest will be submitted this week. We finalized everything and are uploading it. And we've also submitted a grant through the state for security cameras for 4 out of our 5 schools. So that's a part of our long-range capital plan. And hopefully if we receive those monies from the state, we'll be able to start that in June, July.
And had cooperation from local
Yes. So
officials.
we worked, Bob Souza worked with specifically the town of Lakeville, the police and fire chief. He had to get their authorization to move forward because we're going to be putting locks in one of the buildings. We've asked to put locks in one of the buildings. And we've also had to have sign off by both town administrators.
So this is a grant that we realized after one of our last meetings that the state reduced in relation to school safety and security. So pretty competitive grant though, so we don't know where it's going to fare. And we built it in as part of our plan, but we're cautiously optimistic and we had support from the towns. Thank you.
That's it? Now, are there any other questions for
Or 19.
19? Okay. Moving on to item 7, new business. Just to flip-flop this a little bit, we're going to take 7B, which is a permission to transfer funds FY19. This does require a vote. Do you want to just give a quick?
Sure. This is an historical transfer. We provide breakfast for those students at the high school, and we have a revolving account that had additional funds in it that we've transferred out to cover those costs.
But because it's going out of that account, it requires action on the board.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Do you need this as read, or are we okay as presented?
As presented.
Perfect. I have a motion and a second. Any questions, any discussion? Mr. Clark?
Has anybody approached Stop and Shop with regard to stuff like that?
Not through my office. I can suggest it to the building principals. They're the people who run kind of these programs for the MCAS, and I just do the funding.
Only because they've been very generous with stuff like that in the past, and if we reach out to them, who knows what might happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, they have helped us out in instances like this, too. I'm not sure in this specific case, but it's certainly worthy of doing it.
Any other discussion points? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Motion passes unanimously. 7A, FY20 budget hearing.
Absolutely. So the bulk of this meeting, which has been advertised in local papers as required, is an opportunity for the community at large, although obviously we don't have a huge attendance here. Certainly the camera and Lake Cam will help provide communities as much transparency. It does give the opportunity, as I said earlier in the meeting, for questions and answers. I would say more than ever, we have been as transparent as possible. This is my 5th year, my 15th doing school budget hearings, but 5th here in the district. And I would say this year, so much so that we actually produced the presentation on the website prior to the presentation, right? So as your packet went out, anyone who would like to access or update information, maybe that readily available information on the website kept people from coming out, I'm not sure, but we'll have opportunities over the next 2 months. So I'll try to keep this brief, but it's real clear and important. It's my privilege, so I'm kind of somewhat speaking to the community and not necessarily the board members that are here, to present the FY20 Regional School District budget.
Excuse me, Rick, just a...
Yes.
So for those that are sitting in there, we do have copies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if anybody wants a copy, can come up and grab one.
As large as that is, the hard copy is available, which has 2 slides, I think, on each page. And we did make enough copies for the group that's here. Thank you, Steve.
Is that the same that's online?
It is correct, yes. Yep. This is a hard copy. Even for purposes of where you're sitting, depending on you can stay. Thank you, Steve.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. So as I said, the 2 towns, this is, again, it's a fluid process here. The budget started in the fall, but now we really kick-start it. So 2 months from tonight, June 3rd, town meetings, we'll be looking for both Lakeville and Freetown to support, hopefully, this number. I think some other critical dates, and I'll kind of wrap that up at the end of this presentation, are we're hopeful that the regional FinCom will have a recommendation next week. They have a meeting scheduled on April 11th, and then this board on April 24th will potentially vote on what's being presented tonight. It does afford the community, anyone that's here, though, to ask questions as it relates to any component of what I'm presenting tonight. I'll try to, we have multiple slides. I'll try to highlight some and kind of breeze past others, and I can come back at any point. The first thing that I've done here is I typically like to recognize the leadership, right? The continuity and consistency of the school committee, but also the leadership council. It's critical. As you can see, I'd like to recognize specifically in a couple slides, there's some unique things that have happened each year. I typically like to recognize the chair, Steve Owen, and vice chair, although Gene Fox is not here today, for their leadership. Certainly, I'd like to also recognize Steve Sylvia, who joined us this year as the newest member of the school committee. Welcome, Mr. Sylvia. And also, in addition, newly elected, re-elected, Will Sankwitz as well. So I'd like to recognize, in addition to obviously Sherry Barron, Bob Clark, and Lauren Ramsden, and Derek Grusha. It is critical that the committee continue to maintain the priorities, and certainly it helps this process, and I think provides a lot of credibility in both communities. The next group that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is obviously the administrative team. I will still say that the teaching staff and the support staff is the backbone of our success, really, and it's critical that those employees understand that. But the leadership at central office and at each of the buildings, each of the 5 schools, has been critical not only to this budget process, but to the continued support of our schools. Special recognition needs to go out to at least 4 individuals on this slide. I would like to personally and professionally, on behalf of the school committee and administration, recognize Marlene Correa, who's going to be taking on a new professional endeavor as a full-time professor at Bridgewater State University, although we're already trying to secure some consulting and having a return in a literacy capacity. I'd like to thank Marlene on behalf of the entire community, school community, for all her efforts. I'd also like to recognize, for his 24 years of service, the Director of Facilities up there, Robert Souza, make note of that. Bob is moving on to Old Colony to take on a similar role, and he's been instrumental in working with our new Director of Facilities, Greg Goodwin. I would also like to recognize Dave Patota for all his years of service. Dave is retiring this year from the middle school, as you know, and I'd also like to recognize Jack Higgins, who is currently listed here as the assistant principal at the high school, but who will be taking the reins as the middle school principal, and has already been over. He was over there literally today talking to staff after school and kind of making that transition. So I just want to highlight, because there was some uniqueness to the leadership team in relation to all of those individuals, but specific. So as we kind of roll, before we get to the numbers, there's always a couple of slides I think that people kind of fast forward by, but they're the keys to everything you do. Your budget is nothing more than a reflection of your priorities, and it starts with a vision. And I'd just like to highlight, I'm not going to read the whole vision, but I think the key piece there is where you get to the second and third sentence, where we talk about what we're about is promoting academic growth and social responsibility in a safe, supportive environment. And that's the key. It's a student-centered approach, and everything else we do should be focused. And you're going to see some work in the next 2 or 3 months as we start to wrap up and bring forward a new strategic plan that highlights our new vision and mission, and I think really set us apart from some of our counterparts. Typically, we just make a couple of references to the fact that you can't have a budget unless you have some priorities, and I believe this budget and the numbers reflect those priorities. It is challenging. I think we're being fiscally responsible. Could we use more funding? Absolutely. But I think the other thing and I've said this for 5 years, and I'll continue to drive it home in addition to my raise the bar adage, we're a good school system, and sometimes that complacency can get in the way of being great. And I think what I'm thrilled about is the enthusiasm that the leadership team and the teachers that I see in professional development in the community to step up and to take it one step further. I do not believe that we're settling and accepting the status quo, and I think you'll see that reflected here in this budget tonight. Some of the assumptions that we typically have presented, and because we started this budget process a little bit later, have been helpful. Generally speaking, and I can certainly have the Director of Finance speak specifics, but generally speaking, the state is level funded, right? I think we were getting a little bit more money right now, projected in Chapter 70, but we're receiving a little bit less money in regional transportation. Circuit breaker for special education, level funded. So those are the big components from the state perspective. We know what our contractual obligations are, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the negotiation team and some of the adjustments that we made in step and schedules that over time we know will have an impact and provide us some sustainability. Increased English language learner population, it's growing, right? It's growing by over 20 students, and we need to meet those needs, and you'll see that reflected in the budget. Health insurance decrease, I have to give the Director of Finance a tremendous amount of credit. Ashley and I worked closely at negotiating and working to at least in my tenure, the first time that you're seeing not an increase in health insurance rates. And that has made a significant impact on allowing us to focus on some of those other priorities. Utility costs continue to kind of trend upwards. Now we're going to roll into some of the numbers. So with that backdrop, what you have tonight, and it hasn't changed since January with my initial budget, there have been some adjustments made, but the bottom line number has not changed. I'm submitting to you a budget for a public hearing tonight of $40,120,610. You will see last year's voted budget from the towns. That's an increase of $1,847,136, or a 4.83% increase. To give you a little perspective, well, actually, before we get to the perspective of the 5-year piece, these are the assessments. This is what's going to cost the town of Freetown and Lakeville under the current numbers as projected. A 4.89% increase in the assessment for Freetown, and a 5.39% increase for Lakeville. How does that compare? Actually, did I jump one ahead? Oh yeah, it's one more slide, I'm sorry. So just to break down that increase, that 1.8, I would like to just highlight a couple of key. Look at the top. It's salaries, right? It's staff. When you have over 400 employees, that backbone, those resources and those support staff, that's a 2.65% increase. If you look at that 1.8, over $1 million. The increase is right there. You'll also see a significant increase in transportation. That's both in regular education and special education, 1.09. But you'll also see some offsets. Debt has come down a little bit, and that's the result of technology being pulled out. We do have a slide where we'll speak a little bit to that. And also some technology, some of the contracts piece, we're backed out and we're taken care of. So we're not putting less emphasis into technology, but you'll see it reflected, and Ashley can speak a little bit more to that when we get there. And then you see some of the other subsequent increases. Mr. Owen and I often have a conversation over the last couple of years about this being a level service budget. I've tried to tweak my response to and challenge to him on that by saying this is a recalibration of the budget. And maybe that's my attempt to go around the level service piece. It is an attempt to provide some level service budget here, but it's also a reflection. This budget, FY20 budget, has me most comfortable that I think it's putting the money where it needs to be spent. We have always laid with the bottom line being what it is, but I think this transparent budget that all the town officials have, not just the school committee, was a significant step in the right direction this year. So there's the 5-year history of the budget increases. You see the 4.83. It mirrors the first couple of years where we really had to make some adjustments and catch up a little bit. The last 2 years, we had to make some adjustments there. But you will see it's certainly within in my 5-year tenure, within the range of what the expectations are. I'm optimistic that the Regional Finance Committee, which has been instrumental in providing recommendations, will be able to provide some recommendations prior to the school committee taking formal action later this month, hopefully. Like I said, we've got that 2-month window between now and the two town meetings in June 3rd to make final determination and kind of move forward. I am going to turn over a portion of the next slides to the Director of Finance. Could have turned over much of the presentation because obviously her stamp is on this document, but also the larger document as it relates. And Ashley's going to go into some of the details. I'll come back towards the tail end, talk about class size and some of the priorities for the school district and next steps.
So the next slide is going to show our employee salaries for FY20. This is a $1 million increase. This is a change from the recommended budget that we started with in February. This includes those 2 Grace teachers that were initially retirements. We've added those back into the budget. This includes all of our step and schedule increases and the 2% collective bargaining increase. As we discussed earlier in this year, we have the increased minimum wage, and that has been included in this budget. We have also presented additional staffing for FY20, and those are included in that $1 million number. Here you'll see our additions, the English language learner teacher. As we discussed, that population is growing every year in our district. We're looking for a middle school specialist, a middle school special education sub-separate teacher, and the Gray's media specialist. That would be an increase of 3.5 FTEs. With that, there's an offset of retirements. That would be retirements or movements within the district. So the high school special education teacher would be a movement from the high school to the middle school. The high school paraprofessional, we have students that do not need these supports anymore, either graduating or just not on their IEP, so there will be a reduction there. And the Gray's library paraprofessional will be retiring, and then hopefully we'll have the library specialist to offset.
So I just want to make, on staffing, before she gets to the next slide, so this is a fluid piece, and we're very comfortable with the budget as we present, but as early as Monday, Liz Curlin's going to be meeting with all the principals, looking at paraprofessional assignments, looking at special education staff, looking at a variety of things. And we can have changes that take place. It's not going to change the bottom line, but just need to be aware of that. The other piece is we'll be coming out with some postings, and I want to share this with the community, but also the school committee, because in the next 2 weeks, we'll start identifying those knowns, those givens, those retirements, and those replacement postings where you have a second grade teacher retiring and we know we need a second grade teacher. So it's almost going to be the first wave of postings for 1920. Anything that you see that's new here will not get posted until we get closer to town meeting, until the school committee has taken formal action, until we have a FinCom. So I've shared that with the principals to communicate to staff. If they don't see the library media specialist in 2 weeks on that posting, it's because, in fact, that's a new position. So we've kind of tailored it that way, and I just want to bring it to your attention that when you see that first wave of posting, that reflects the 12 or 14 retirements or resignations that we prepared for not inclusive of some of the adjustments and some of these new additional pieces that we have here. I made it to 2 slides without interrupting you.
A next large cost in the district is health insurance. As you can see, there's a 0% increase and a small $300 amount increase. When we do this calculation, we look at the change in employment throughout the year. Do we have people who are retiring? Do we have people coming to age that they're using a different healthcare option? So those are all factored in. With the retirements, we project a new hire as a family plan. So we're not in the position where we have all of these single plans and we have many more families. So that's our health insurance costs for this year. We were fortunate that we did come in with the active health insurance as a decrease from Maya. Hopefully we'll see that going forward, but there are no promises. The next slide is transportation. We've broken out between regular and special education. FY20 for regular transportation, you'll see an increase of $106,000. This is 2 components. One is the contractual increase from our bid process. It is the 1-year extension from our contract. We did not go out to bid again this year. We are going to use that extension. And it also includes a fuel adjustment. That's something that's in the contract. You don't exactly know what that cost is going to be year to year, but we've budgeted an amount that seems appropriate for the last 5 years that we've received. For special education, you'll see an increase. And this has changed since our last presentation. What we did is we went back and really did a projection for next year, every single student who is taking an out-of-district bus, and we did the amount of days and how much it would cost us, and we believe it would be a $300,000 increase.
And that's inclusive of both vehicles that we're transporting children and also contracted services, which would be inclusive of South Coast Collaborative and Van Pool as well.
Capital debt payments, you'll see a decrease for next year. There is no new capital debt. This is just a continuation of what we've already had. Special education, this is a 4-year summary of what the total cost has been. You'll see we've been around that $9 million mark, and as we move into FY20, we're at $10,454,000. That's due to, you'll see the increase in circuit breaker. We're expecting to receive more in circuit breaker reimbursement for FY20. This slide is the special education enrollment history. It's the same from the initial presentation we had here, and it's for reference. And the English language education, we're requesting an additional 0.5 FTE. As we've discussed in many meetings, our student population is growing and we do need that additional part-time teacher. Currently, there is only 1 in the district, and their supply line is roughly $2,000. They do a lot with the small amount of money and resources they have here, but we'd like to grow this program and really service our students.
It becomes real challenging to meet the needs of children at 3 different levels in 5 schools with 1 individual. Not that 1.5 is going to be the perfect solution as it grows, but it's an expansion and a need.
And here, this is, again, from the original presentation as of January 28th. You'll see that our numbers are growing year over year. Excess and deficiency. We're trending upward. FY18, we had a certified amount of $80,000. As of October, for FY19, we have 218, and the hope is we'll have approximately $700,000 going into FY20.
And Ashley's provided that information as part of your assessment and projection with Regional FinCom and the board monthly.
And we're also hoping to maintain this leveled amount with not using E&D in our budget every year, and this budget presentation does not include any offset from E&D in it. These are a few slides just for reference. It's the district enrollment over the years. As you can see, in 2007, we had a spike. There's been a slight decline, but you have seen off from 2006 on, we've really leveled out. This is just a breakdown between the 2 towns. And here is our school choice enrollment.
So school choice is currently just a couple of deadlines and applications we're now receiving for 1920. The school district identified once again through my recommendation and your support that we will remain a school choice district. Just to, from a historical perspective, go back, to when I came on board here, you had just over 20 students. We've brought in 50 more students into school choice in just the last 5 years. Where we have not identified all the parameters, but we're looking at about 20 additional students. Typically, the committee, if you recall from the last meeting, took action and actually identified grade level, but I think there was a genuine concern about class size and projections, and so we stayed clear of that, but we did identify. So we're receiving applications. Those 70 students are current students, so those are givens. In the past, we have projected additional revenue. We have not done that currently. So we are not projecting. We have school choice as part of our assessment, which is $5,000 per student, $350,000. In the past, we have taken a practice where we have tried to project additional revenue, haven't always met that goal, and so we have chosen at this point to not include that. It would require, if we were going to say projecting we're going to get 20 more students, saying we're going to get 90 students, we could build that in. The potential piece is, though, when you don't get that revenue, and this year is an example of that, then you're a little bit of a shortfall in relation to your bottom line. So April 11th, the applications are due, so I can tell you, in short time, about how many applications we're receiving, although you can accept applications at any time. So even in the summertime, if you have slots available, you can. But applications are coming in.
20.
We have 20 to date. My administrative assistant, Renee, handles that. Well, I would say almost on a daily basis, we get an inquiry or a call at this time of year as it relates to that. It runs the full gamut across the levels.
Yes.
Elementary, middle school, intermediate school, and high school. May 3rd, there will be a lottery. So that's when students are identified, and that's after a review by administration. But just from a time frame perspective, this gives you an idea. I think it's just another example of the district taking advantage of some available space, but also being certainly very much aware of the priority of maintaining class size. So these are students that we have to be able to have programs to provide for them. But I think it's a significant slide in relation to towns often asking us, what are we doing in relation to looking at revenue? So the next, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 slides are really background information. Ashley did make an adjustment on intermediate school. We get to that one to reflect the 2 teachers, right? Initially, if you recall, in January, when we presented, we were talking 2 less teachers, so we've been able to make that adjustment. I leave it on Assawamsett and Freetown Elementary School because what I want the school committee, but also the community at large to hear is these numbers, these projections are something that the principals, almost on a daily basis, have some conversation, whether it be with Ashley or myself. Specifically, first, second, and third grade, you have a pretty good idea. You can't anticipate what your summer number is going to be. The real question mark is in relation to the census and applications for kindergarten. And I can tell you right now that we had a conversation as late as, Tuesday, yesterday? And I think both Mr. Ward and Mrs. Pinal are, I won't say concerned, but are monitoring the current numbers. We have projected 5 sections, and it looks like right now, and it's very early on in the process, that we have over 100 students at each of the schools from paperwork coming in. But it's really not a solid number. And so what I'm sharing with the communities, and we're sharing the school committee, we may be having to take a look at some of the staffing needs, specifically at our primary grades, based on those numbers. It's tough to ballpark what's going to happen in the summertime. It really is tough to project that. And I know we had a conversation with Mrs. Pinal at Assawamsett that's up here about the fact that we had 13 students that came in after October 1 this year that required additional services at Assawamsett. Correct me, Liz, right? That's the number. I think
Yes.
it's 13. So I got to repeat that again. So 13 students after October 1 that came into Assawamsett that needed additional services that are currently at school. So when you hear of a staffing concern mid-year and you question, or the community as a whole kind of looks and says, why didn't they see this coming? You really can't see that coming. So as much as I feel very good about what we're presenting tonight and looking for the support of the communities and the school committee and Regional FinCom, I wanted to highlight and stop for a moment and pause to let people know that this is something on a monthly basis that the administrators take very seriously, have a real good handle on, and will continue to monitor it as we move forward. And we might potentially have to make some adjustments. I give you that example because that's a real example this year, and there's no way other than building more money into your budget and saying, we think that we might have that case, which was a historical budget process in a lot of communities, right? You would build in one additional staff, for one student with an IEP, and almost anticipate that you have an out-of-district additional student, which can happen. Challenge, though, to really convince communities, and we haven't done that here. But I did want to share that when you look at both the class size at both Freetown Elementary School and at Assawamsett, we're currently projecting 5 sections. So you can do the math. We're talking a little bit over 21 students based on numbers that are coming into us. It's April 3rd, though, and it is really early on in the process. We obviously have a much better handle on those other grades because those kids are obviously current students. But as I just showed or just said to you, you can see how that can change. We did make an adjustment to this slide to reflect the last slide that the school committee and this community saw, reflect the fact that we had 2 fewer classroom teachers based on the support of this school committee, but also some good timing. We were able to make some adjustments in relation to insurance and cover the cost without actually having to increase the budget from January at this time. We made that adjustment. The middle school, we're talking about, so when I talk about 2 schools that really have not, I don't want to say they haven't been a priority. We've really put a tremendous emphasis on our primary grades, rightfully so, and the high school who have really excelled. But the last couple of years, we didn't take care of the library media specialist at the intermediate school. We have that built in. There's an impact not only to the library, but to support for students that goes beyond just the library at the intermediate school, that I can tell you the staff at the intermediate school and the principal are real excited about that opportunity. Likewise, at the middle school, we're talking about bringing down those class size that have been over 30 in our specialist areas, in addition to an additional special education teacher that will address some sub-separate programs and allow a much better structure to provide for services for students for next year. And we're also, again, a necessity really at the middle school. Lastly, it's a little challenging to take a look at the high school and class size, right? Because you have so many different variables there. And Dr. Starkey's not here tonight, but could speak to the specifics. I think when you have a comprehensive high school, and a high-flying comprehensive high school, you need, and we have some talented students right in the front row that are an example to that. When you have a comprehensive high school and you have 16 AP classes, it's critical that you offer the amount of opportunities that our kids have. And I think it's critical, and I think we need to look beyond class size in some instances and really understand that you need to provide those offerings if you're going to retain some of the talented students that are here tonight in our programs. And I'm excited about that. So next steps as we kind of conclude this maybe about 25 to 30-minute presentation. Recommended budget. What is the public budget presented tonight? And it's stated recommended budget because the school committee has not taken formal action, which is very common. You want the public to have opportunity to provide feedback or ask questions. Committee also has that opportunity. We have one more opportunity. We actually have multiple opportunities, but we had talked about a timeline of late April to try to get a voted budget if the regional FinCom next week can also provide some parameters and recommendation. Again, $40,120,610 budget, 4.83% increase. Upcoming meetings, I've highlighted a couple of them. We're here tonight for the public budget hearing, April 3rd, next Thursday night at 6:30 here. Regional FinCom will take a look at that recommendation and hopefully provide us some insight. They've already given early indication that they would hopefully be able to do so. Both Freetown and Lakeville need to be represented to do that. The next school committee meeting is April 24th. It's not a requirement that the committee take action at that time, but you only have two other scheduled meetings in May, and it would at least allow us an opportunity to get the message out in relation to what we're looking for support. And you see the adjustment on yours. I think some of the hard copies that went out just said June. We hadn't solidified the town meetings. We now know that both town meetings are the same night, so we're going to be doing a divide and conquer in relation to getting to both places to answer any questions. Obviously, I'd like to think the legwork that we'll have done with the FinCom, the finance committees, the Board of Selectmen, we'll have a lot of town officials on board to what we're sharing tonight. And you couldn't expect me not to finish with a slide that spoke of raising the bar. I do appreciate the support of the communities. Every time we've asked them to step up, both in Freetown and Lakeville, whether it be facilities, whether it be capital, whether it be operational, they've done so. The committee continues to be aggressive in providing the necessary supports and making sure that the priorities are not lost. I can't say that historically. We've had issues where we've taken steps back. I don't believe that's happened. I don't think we've taken steps back in the last 5 years. So I'm going to turn it over back to the chair, Mr. Owen, but also if there are any questions either from the board or something you think we've missed tonight, or certainly the community, or even our student reps that are here as well.
Yeah, so we'll, as part of this, we'll open a public opportunity for public discussion. If there's any questions, what have you, we just ask you to come to the mic, your name, the town that you're here with, and then we can direct to who the appropriate people that can answer that question. While we wait for everyone to rush up to the mic, are there any questions from the committee? Not that we haven't seen this or hashed out a couple of things already the last few meetings, but anything new?
And I just need the communities to hear, I know this board has been very much into the process, not that you haven't previous, right? We've had multiple questions going through the chair. You've already provided some feedback. That's why we were able to make those adjustments. So this has been a working document, and I'm not so sure that's always been the case. I think the committee has been very much engaged, so I'm not surprised that there aren't a lot of questions, because I think a lot of your questions, I would like to think, have been answered previous to tonight.
I think, and not to speak for everybody in there, I think there are concerns, right? Why wouldn't there be with a $40 million budget?
Sure, right.
But I think that if we keep our eye on the ball, especially on those class size issues, and ways that we could potentially do that. The other thing that we've always said is the special education costs. It's not something that's etched in stone. It's a moving target even after October 1st. Not that we don't like to hear updates from Ms. Curlin, but I'm always hopeful that it's not oh, by the way, we need to find some more around here. So for that. But we have a question.
Yes, from last time, Crystal.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Can you just, for your name and...
Crystal Ng, CPAC chairperson. I live in Lakeville. Last time, we were going to look into the bus for special education. Is there anything on that?
I am going to, the public participation on this is related to the budget.
It is, because just like I said last time, the amount of money spent on the bus to fix this continually, is this going to be something that's factored in? Is it getting money from someplace else? Are we going to buy a new bus? So I think it does go back to the budget.
Well, I believe the question was answered, correct me if I'm wrong, from the administration. I believe they've had a conversation with you about the bus. Is that correct?
Yes, we're talking about a van.
A van,
Yeah.
okay. Has the van been addressed as far as the issues that...
It has. So in trying to provide, for the students and with the needs that we currently have, there was, Ashley and I coordinated, and there was a van that we could repair as opposed to buying a new van or leasing or privatizing. And there was a fix for the transmission, which we authorized. It was pretty cost effective with what we get out of it. So the decision was made to go forward and fix the van, which is now fully operational, I've been told by the van driver and also the transportation supervisor.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That one. The next one I have is there are grants for paraprofessionals, and you can find that on the Mass EDU site. That would be something that would be interesting to get some of the paraprofessionals trained, because as we know, the paraprofessionals are lacking training. I think this would be very important, that it would take money. Just, you don't even have to use money in the special education budget to train paraprofessionals if you could possibly get this grant.
I believe those...
So we do provide professional development and use grants, but we certainly will take every opportunity to look at additional funding. our paraprofessionals are trained and are part of our PD opportunities. Could they receive more training? I'm not so sure there'd be one superintendent in the Commonwealth who doesn't think that their teachers or paraprofessionals, Crystal, to your point, could use some more training. So we certainly will take a look at that. We can see if potentially, I know Marlene works closely with Liz, and we'll work with Ashley, and we'll see if there are other opportunities to provide some training.
Right, because, I mean, as I know, some of the paraprofessionals only have high school diplomas. So I was wondering if you're going to pay for some of them to have associate's degrees, what they're supposed to have, to be paraprofessionals in Freetown-Lakeville.
Well, Mr. Owen, if I may, I'm not sure how you want it, I don't want to feel that we're neglecting the question. So first, the idea that a paraprofessional, most of our paraprofessionals are coming with degree licenses now. It's not a requirement. I can tell you that many of them have bachelor's degrees, some instances masters. They're taking the first step, not all of them. We have some very talented individuals who have high school degrees who have taken the parapro test and have qualified to do that. So they are qualified to be paraprofessionals. I'd be remiss if I said a college degree should be the bar by which we judge some talented people, because we do have them. But it runs the gamut. I think the more education we can provide, I certainly wouldn't disagree that a paraprofessional today, the expectations for those individuals are much greater today than they probably were 20 years ago in education, where they were providing assistance to classroom teachers. But I wouldn't say that our paraprofessionals are not properly licensed and certified, because they are. That we do have they do have various degrees, and that's a component. As part of that, there is no state requirement as it relates to that.
And I believe,
Actually, there is if they're in a Title I school, which is, you have 3 Title I
do that.
schools. So yeah, they do have to take the
Well,
parapro.
you
Said it, I'm just telling you what it is. It's the
so
same
I'm
thing
gonna,
as what, no.
hold on. So we as a committee have to abide by open meeting laws. So if specifically that particular point is not on the agenda, we cannot talk about it. If you want to submit something and see if we can get it on agenda, we can do that. But this is where I need to draw the line. I can't have a conversation because now we're in violation of open meeting law. So I just want to make sure we're clear. We're not trying to be disrespectful.
That's right, I did send you the link from the last meeting, didn't
And
I?
we all know about it. We all have to sign off that we know about it. So we're all very clear about that. I just want to make sure that we're not trying to be disrespectful. I just need to cut it off as soon as things we get into an area that is not specifically on the agenda. So if there are items that you have about the budget, I'm sure we can
I did, it was
address that.
paraprofessionals.
Yeah, that was-
That's what I was talking
And
about.
I would agree, we could look at additional opportunities and grant funding to secure that.
Our paraprofessionals participate about every month in a professional development?
Yeah, they're provided multiple
half days.
opportunities.
On the half-days?
I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying that the grant's here to provide more education
Yep,
to people to deal with the kids with special needs.
I would agree. Thank you.
Are there any other budget questions we can answer?
No, not right
Okay,
now.
thank you. Anybody else have any particular questions from the? Before we close down that, any other questions from the board? Okay. We will close, as we need to, the public participation on the budget discussion, and move on to the next item in the agenda. Reports to the committee, none at this point. Subcommittee updates, more to come.
Well, only to note, we've noted it multiple times about the regional FinCom next meeting Thursday.
Yep. Derek has a great routine he goes by. I welcome anyone to come and watch. Impeccable. Any other business come before the meeting?
I just simply wanted to note that we have the 2 senior breakfasts listed and some dates. A lot of exciting activities happening at your place. Artapalooza event on Saturday. Mrs. Tavares has provided you an invitation to that event. Great community event at Swampsett on Saturday. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't say there's a lot of other activities happening as well. I'll be attending tomorrow night's opening of The Wizard of Oz. I happened to see Mary Poppins last week at the middle school. A lot of buzz because a lot of the shows, the theater groups have now not only incorporated the schools, the middle school and high school, but are bringing in some of our elementary kids. And as I said to some of you, it's kind of exciting to hear some of the kids at the earlier grades, and they've been included as munchkins and various actors and actresses, and talking about, the multiple shows. So it's nice to see the transitions being made, and those kids here, and they're probably here right now, quite honestly, rehearsing, getting ready. But there are a couple of dates listed there. And obviously, we continue, and Dr. Correa will have an update. Some of you, I know, wearing your parents and hat, know that our students are into the assessment period as well, at all levels, right? We've already had high school, middle school, and intermediate school, and we're kickstarting our grade 3 students at Swampscott and Freetown as part of the MCAS piece too.
Just related to the senior breakfast, have we done anything different to advertise for this? Because
we did reach out to the Council on Aging, and they assured me in the newsletter we haven't done anything dramatically different. We've got a little bit of window of time. I will say they were much more engaged about publicizing it at those locations and trying to meet deadlines.
maybe our good friends at the Lake Cam can do a small PSA to.
Be helpful. I'd love to see some more.
Okay.
But we do have a couple of weeks prior to that.
Next on the agenda is executive session for reason number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, the director of curriculum, and/or central office staff, and to conduct collective bargaining sessions per contract negotiation with non-union personnel. Our plan is to return to open session. We have a roll for this?
Sure. Steve Owen,
Yes.
Sherry Barron,
Yes.
Robert Clark, Derek Gracious.
Yes.
Will Sinkwitz,
Yes.
Steve Sylvia.
Yes.
Okay, 7:50. Appreciate everyone's patience in coming back into open session. There is no further action necessary by this committee, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.